The moment I realized my marriage was truly over wasn't when Jordan stopped saying, "I love you." It wasn't even when he moved into the guest bedroom. It was on a random Tuesday night when I reached for his hand across the dining table, and he pulled away like my touch might burn him. That's when I knew the man I married 4 years ago was gone, replaced by someone who could barely stand to be in the same room as me. I never thought I'd be that woman, the one who cheated, the one who confessed, the one who destroyed her marriage with a single night of weakness. But here I am, living in the aftermath, trying to navigate the cold silence of a home that used to be filled with laughter and warmth. Everyone has a story about how they ruined their life. This is mine. Jordan and I met at a friend's wedding. I was a bridesmaid. He was the groom's college roommate. We locked eyes across the dance floor, such a cliché, I know, and within minutes we were talking like we'd known each other forever. By the end of the night, I knew 2 things with absolute certainty. I was already falling for him, and he felt the same way. Our relationship moved quickly after that. Weekend trips turned into moving in together, which led to a proposal on the beach during sunset, another cliché, but one I treasured. The wedding was small, just close friends and family under string lights in his parents' backyard. Everyone said we were perfect together, that we had the kind of love people search their whole lives for. And for a while, we did. The first 2 years of our marriage were everything I'd hoped for. Jordan was attentive, passionate, supportive. We talked about everything, spent our weekends exploring new restaurants or hiking trails, made love spontaneously in the middle of the day. We were building a life together, making plans for the future, maybe kids in a few years, maybe a house with a bigger yard, definitely a dog once we were settled. I'm not sure when things started to change. There wasn't a single moment I can point to and say, that's where it went wrong. It was gradual, the way most relationships evolve, or devolve, I guess, small changes that seemed insignificant until they weren't. Jordan got promoted at work, which meant longer hours and more stress. I started a new position that required occasional travel. We were both tired, both busy, both assuming the other understood without having to say it out loud. Date nights became less frequent, conversations shorter, intimacy more scheduled than spontaneous. I told myself it was normal, just the natural progression of a long-term relationship. The passion always fades eventually, right? That's what everyone says. But deep down, I knew something was missing. I missed the way Jordan used to look at me like I was the most fascinating person in the world. I missed feeling desired, feeling seen. I missed feeling alive. Enter Alex. I met him at a work conference in Atlanta. I was there for 4 days, representing my company at a booth during the day and attending networking events in the evenings. Alex was a speaker, charismatic, confident, with this infectious energy that drew people to him, including me. He approached me after his presentation, complimented me on a question I'd asked during the Q&A. We ended up talking for nearly an hour, missing the next session entirely. He was easy to talk to, genuinely interested in what I had to say. When he suggested getting dinner later, I told myself it was just professional networking. It wasn't. Dinner stretched into drinks at the hotel bar, where our conversation shifted from industry trends to personal lives. I mentioned I was married. He said he was divorced. I showed him pictures of Jordan and me from our honeymoon. He showed me photos of his dog. Everything was above board, appropriate, until it wasn't. I can't blame the alcohol, although I'd had enough to lower my inhibitions. I can't blame Alex, who knew I was married but didn't push or pressure me. I can't even blame Jordan for the distance that had grown between us. The truth is, I made a choice. A terrible, selfish, destructive choice. When Alex walked me to my room and lingered at the door, I invited him in. When he kissed me, I kissed him back. When he asked if I was sure, I said yes. For those few hours, I didn't think about Jordan or our marriage or what I was throwing away. I thought only about how good it felt to be wanted again, to feel that spark of excitement, to be someone other than the woman who came home to an increasingly empty relationship. The guilt hit me the moment Alex left. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my wedding ring, physically ill with the reality of what I'd done. I called Jordan immediately, some desperate part of me needing to hear his voice, but he didn't answer. Probably asleep, unaware that his world was about to implode because of me. I spent the rest of the night cycling between panic, self-loathing, and frantic attempts to figure out what to do next. By morning, I'd convinced myself that telling Jordan would only hurt him unnecessarily. What he didn't know couldn't hurt him, right? I could carry this burden myself, learn from it, rededicate myself to our marriage. I almost talked myself into it. Almost. But as I packed my suitcase, preparing to head to the airport and back home, I realized I couldn't live with that secret between us. Jordan deserved the truth, no matter how painful. And maybe, I thought with a desperate kind of hope, maybe if I was completely honest, we could work through it together. I flew home with a knot in my stomach and a practiced confession in my head. Jordan picked me up from the airport, greeting me with a distracted kiss and questions about the conference. I waited until we were home, until we'd eaten the takeout he'd picked up, until we were sitting on the couch with no more barriers between the truth and us. "I need to tell you something," I said, my voice already shaking. "And I need you to know that I love you more than anything, and I'm so sorry." The look on his face as I told him everything, I'll never forget it. Confusion turning to disbelief, turning to pain so raw it physically hurt to witness. He didn't say a word as I spoke, just stared at me with those eyes that had always seen the best in me, now seeing the worst. When I finished, the silence stretched between us like an ocean. "Say something," I finally whispered. "Please." He stood up. "I need to not be here right now." That was it. He grabbed his keys and left. I spent the night on the couch, alternating between sobbing and staring blankly at the ceiling, jumping every time a car drove by, hoping it was him coming home. He didn't come back until the next morning, unshaven and red-eyed. He'd stayed at his brother's place, he told me. He needed time to think. "Are you leaving me?" I asked, terrified of the answer. Jordan looked at me for a long time before speaking. "I don't know." That was 4 months ago. 4 months of living in limbo, neither together nor apart. Jordan moved into the guest bedroom that night and hasn't slept in our bed since. He goes to work, comes home, eats dinner, sometimes with me, sometimes alone, and retreats to his room or the basement. On weekends, he disappears for hours without saying where he's going. We exist in the same space but rarely connect. The few conversations we have are superficial or practical, bills to be paid, household chores, plans with mutual friends we now see separately. He never asks about my day anymore. I no longer know about his. The hardest part is watching him go through the motions of daily life while clearly being somewhere else mentally. I've caught him staring at nothing, his jaw clenched tight, his hands balled into fists. Sometimes I hear him on the phone with his brother, his voice low and strained, saying things like, "I just don't know if I can get past it," or "Every time I try, I just see them together." Once I walked past the guest room and heard him crying, deep, ragged sobs that tore through me like knives. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand raised to knock, wanting desperately to comfort him. But I was the source of his pain, and my presence would only make it worse. Our friends have started to notice. At a barbecue last month, Jordan's best friend Marcus pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay. I gave him some vague answer about work stress and adjusting to new schedules, but I could tell he didn't buy it. Jordan had been standing on the opposite side of the yard all afternoon, deliberately avoiding the spot where I'd been talking with a group of wives. When it was time to leave, we drove home in complete silence, the space between us in the car feeling wider than the Grand Canyon. That night, I lay in bed listening to him move around downstairs, opening and closing the refrigerator, turning the TV on and off, restless and unable to settle. Around 2 a.m, I heard his footsteps pause outside my door. My heart leaped. Maybe he'd come in, maybe we'd finally talk. But after a long moment, the footsteps retreated and I heard the guest room door click shut. The isolation is suffocating. I can't talk to my friends about what's really happening, because admitting what I did means watching their opinions of me change in real time. My mother calls weekly, cheerfully asking about Jordan and when we're going to give her grandchildren, oblivious to the fact that her daughter destroyed her marriage. I've started declining invitations to family gatherings, unable to maintain the charade of happiness. At work, my performance has suffered. My boss mentioned it gently during my last review, suggesting I might want to take advantage of the employee assistance program. I thanked her and filed the information away, adding it to the growing pile of problems I don't know how to solve. Sometimes, late at night when sleep won't come, I torture myself with questions that have no answers. Does Jordan think about that night as obsessively as I do? Does he imagine the details I spared him, filling in the blanks with scenarios that are probably worse than reality? Has he calculated how many times we were intimate in the weeks before Atlanta, wondering if I was already emotionally checked out, already looking elsewhere? I wonder if he replays our entire relationship now, searching for signs he missed, red flags he should have seen. I wonder if every good memory we shared is now tainted, reframed through the lens of my betrayal. Most of all, I wonder if the man I fell in love with still exists somewhere beneath all this hurt, or if I've killed him completely. I suggested counseling about 2 months in. To my surprise, Jordan agreed. We've had 6 sessions so far, and while they've helped us communicate a little better, they haven't healed the fundamental breach of trust. Our therapist says these things take time, that Jordan needs to process his anger and hurt before we can rebuild. But lately, I've started to wonder if there's anything left to rebuild. About a month ago, something shifted. Jordan started coming home later, sometimes smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He became more present physically, but even more distant emotionally. And then, after weeks of no physical contact at all, he came to my bedroom one night. I was reading, trying to distract myself from the emptiness of the house, when he opened the door without knocking. Something in his expression made my heart race, not with hope, but with uncertainty. "Jordan," he didn't answer, just crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. Then he kissed me, hard and demanding, nothing like the tender kisses we used to share. Before I could process what was happening, he was pulling at my clothes, his movements urgent but mechanical. I should have stopped him, should have asked what this meant, what he was feeling, but I was so desperate for any connection with him, so starved for his touch, that I let it happen. Let him use my body while keeping his heart completely walled off. When it was over, he got up without a word and went back to the guest room. I lay there in the dark, tears sliding silently down my face, feeling more alone than I had in all the weeks of his absence, because this wasn't making love. This wasn't even sex, really. This was punishment. It's happened several more times since then. Always initiated by him, always with the same detached intensity, always ending with him leaving immediately after. He never kisses me on the lips anymore, never holds me, never stays. Last week, I finally worked up the courage to confront him about it. We were in the kitchen, the remains of another silent dinner between us, when I asked, "What are we doing, Jordan?" He looked up from his phone, his expression guarded. "What do you mean?" "This thing between us. You won't talk to me, won't kiss me, but you'll come to my bed when you want sex. Is this what our marriage is now? You using me when it's convenient and ignoring me the rest of the time?" A flash of something pain, anger, crossed his face before his features settled into that careful blankness I've come to hate. "You didn't seem to mind being used when you were with him," he said quietly. The words hit me like a slap. "That's not fair," I whispered, though part of me wondered if maybe it was. If this was exactly what I deserved. Jordan shrugged, already turning away. "None of this is fair, Elodie." I grabbed his arm, needing him to look at me to really see me. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake that I will regret every day for the rest of my life. But I told you. I could have kept it secret, but I chose to be honest because I respect you too much to lie. "You respect me," he laughed, a harsh sound I'd never heard from him before. "You have a funny way of showing it." "I'm trying," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm trying so hard to make this right, but I need to know if there's anything left to save. Are you staying because you want to work this out or because you want to punish me?" For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the old Jordan, vulnerable, honest, present. Then the walls came back up. "I don't know," he said again, pulling away from my touch. "I really don't know." That night, he came to my room again. And despite everything, despite knowing it was probably unhealthy and definitely heartbreaking, I welcomed him, because even this hollow intimacy was better than nothing. Because I still loved him, still hoped that somewhere beneath his anger, he loved me too. Afterward, as he was getting up to leave, I caught his hand. "Stay," I whispered. "Please." He hesitated, and for one breathless moment I thought he might. Then he gently disentangled his fingers from mine. "I can't." The next day, I came home from work to find him sitting at the dining table, a stack of papers in front of him. I knew what they were before he said anything. "I think we should separate," he said, his voice steady but quiet. "I've been trying, Elodie, I really have. But every time I look at you, I see you with him. Every time you touch me, I wonder if you touched him the same way." I sat down heavily, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "Jordan, please, we can keep working on this. I'll do anything." "That's just it," he interrupted. "You shouldn't have to do anything. And I shouldn't have to try this hard to love my own wife." He pushed a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. "What I've been doing to you, coming to your bed but keeping my distance, it's not right. It's not fair to either of us. I'm angry and hurt, and I've been taking it out on you in ways I'm not proud of." "I deserved it," I said quietly. "No," he shook his head firmly. "No one deserves to be treated that way. What you did hurt me deeply, but my response, it's been wrong, and I think that proves we need time apart. I'm not in a place where I can be the husband you need right now." "What I need is you," I said, tears spilling over. "Just you, Jordan. However you are, whatever you're feeling." He looked at me with such sadness. "That's not healthy, Elodie, for either of us." He was right, of course. What we'd been doing, the silent treatment punctuated by those empty physical encounters, it wasn't healing anything. It was just adding new wounds on top of the old ones. "So that's it?" I asked. "After 4 years, we're just done?" "I didn't say that," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "I said we need to separate. I need space to figure out if I can move past this, if there's a way forward for us. And you need space too, Elodie. Space to figure out why you did what you did, what was missing for you." "Nothing was missing," I insisted. "It was a stupid mistake." "It didn't mean anything." "If it didn't mean anything, you wouldn't have done it." His voice was gentle but firm. "We've been drifting apart for a while now, both of us too busy or too afraid to admit it. What happened with him, it was a symptom, not the cause." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that we'd been fine before my betrayal. But deep down, I knew he wasn't entirely wrong. Things had been changing between us, slowly but surely. My night with Alex didn't come out of nowhere. "How long?" I finally asked. "How long do you need?" "I don't know," it seemed to be his new mantra. "A few months, maybe. I found an apartment nearby. I'll move out this weekend." The reality of it hit me then. Our home with half its soul removed, empty spaces where his things used to be, quiet mornings without his presence. I started to cry in earnest, deep, racking sobs that came from somewhere primal inside me. Jordan didn't comfort me. He watched with those sad eyes, so distant despite being right across the table. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I really am." He moved out 3 days later, taking only what he needed: clothes, personal items, his desk, and computer. Our home felt cavernous without him, every room echoing with memories and regrets. The first week, I called him constantly, texted even more. He responded sometimes, brief messages that told me nothing about what he was thinking or feeling. The second week, I showed up at his apartment unannounced, a desperate move that only resulted in an awkward conversation in his doorway and a gentle but firm request not to do it again. By the third week, I realized that chasing him was only pushing him further away. So I stopped. Started focusing on myself instead, on the question he'd posed: why had I done it? I began seeing a therapist on my own, in addition to our couple's sessions, which Jordan still attended, though less regularly. Started journaling, trying to untangle the knot of emotions and motivations that had led me to make such a devastating choice. The truth, when I finally faced it, was humbling. I had felt invisible in my own marriage, taken for granted in ways that made me vulnerable to outside attention. But instead of addressing those feelings with Jordan, I'd sought validation elsewhere. I'd been a coward, afraid of confronting the distance that had grown between us, afraid of admitting that our perfect love story had developed cracks. And yet, none of that excused what I'd done. Understanding the why didn't erase the hurt I'd caused. 4 weeks after Jordan moved out, I met him for coffee. Neutral territory, a cafe neither of us had visited before. No shared memories to navigate, no distractions. "How are you?" he asked, and for once it sounded like he genuinely wanted to know. "Surviving," I answered honestly. "Missing you, working on myself." I paused, gathering my courage. "How are you?" "Better, I think." He stared into his coffee, getting perspective, sleeping more. "That's good." An awkward silence fell between us, so different from the comfortable quiet we used to share. "Jordan, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about why I did what I did." He looked up, waiting. "You were right," I continued. "Things weren't perfect between us before that night." We were both so busy, so focused on our individual lives that we stopped nurturing what we had together. I felt not unloved, exactly, but unseen, and instead of talking to you about it, I sought validation elsewhere. "Why didn't you talk to me?" he asked, and the genuine confusion in his voice broke my heart all over again. "I don't know," I admitted. "Fear, maybe. Fear that you'd think I was being needy or demanding. Fear that you'd confirm my worst suspicion, that you didn't see me that way anymore, didn't desire me the way you used to." Jordan was quiet for a long moment. "I had no idea you felt that way," he finally said. "I thought we were just settled, comfortable." "Comfortable can be wonderful," I said, "but not when it becomes complacent, not when we stop seeing each other." He nodded slowly. "I've been thinking, too, about us, about what happened after you told me, the way I've been treating you." He looked away, shame evident in his expression. "Using your body while withholding everything else, it was wrong. Cruel even, and I'm sorry for that." "You were hurt," I said, though his apology soothed a wound I hadn't fully acknowledged. "Yes," he agreed, "but hurt doesn't justify cruelty. I was punishing you, Elodie." And that's not who I want to be. Hope flickered in my chest, fragile but persistent. "So where does that leave us?" Jordan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know yet. I'm still angry, still hurt, still trying to figure out if I can trust you again, if we can rebuild what we had, or maybe create something new, something stronger." "I'd like that," I said softly, "to create something new with you, something where we both feel seen and heard and valued." A small smile, the first I'd seen from him in months, touched his lips. "I'd like that too, but I'm not ready yet. I need more time." "I understand." And I did, even though it hurt. "I'll wait, Jordan, for as long as it takes." He reached across the table then and took my hand, the first time he'd initiated gentle contact since that night. "I can't promise anything, Elodie. I want to be honest about that." "I know." I squeezed his hand, memorizing the feeling in case it was the last time. "But I still have hope." That was 2 weeks ago. We've had coffee twice more since then, each conversation a little easier than the last. He's asked questions about my therapy, shared insights from his own. We've talked about what we each need to feel secure in a relationship, the boundaries and expectations we never clearly defined before. Last time, as we were leaving the cafe, he hugged me goodbye. A real hug, not the stiff, obligatory embrace of recent months. I felt him exhale against my hair, felt some of the tension leave his body. "I miss you," he whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "I miss you too," I said, fighting back tears. "Every day." He pulled back, his expression unreadable. "I should go." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As he turned to leave, I called after him, "Jordan?" He paused, looking back. "Do you think you'll ever be able to kiss me again? Really kiss me, I mean?" The question hung between us, laden with meaning we both understood. He wasn't just withholding kisses, he was withholding his heart, his trust, his full presence. "I hope so," he said after a long moment. "I really do." It wasn't a promise, but it was something. A tiny seed of possibility that maybe someday we could find our way back to each other, or forward to something new. I don't know what will happen with Jordan and me. I don't know if he'll ever fully forgive me, if we'll ever recapture the love we once shared or build something different but equally valuable. I don't know if I'll spend the rest of my life atoning for one night of weakness, or if someday we'll look back on this period as the painful but necessary fracture that ultimately made us stronger. What I do know is this: love isn't always enough. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal easily, and some mistakes change you forever, reshaping the landscape of your life in ways you never imagined. But I also know that people are resilient, that marriages can survive betrayal if both people want to rebuild, that forgiveness is possible, even if it comes slowly, even if it's never complete. So I wait. I work on myself, try to become someone worthy of the second chance I so desperately want. I hope that one day Jordan will kiss me again, really kiss me with all the love and desire and connection we once shared. That he'll see me not just as the woman who hurt him, but as the woman who loves him enough to fight for him, wait for him, become better for him. And if that day never comes, if the damage I've done proves too deep to repair, then I'll have to live with that too. Live with the knowledge that I destroyed something precious with my selfishness, that some mistakes can't be undone no matter how much you wish they could. But until I know for sure, I'll keep showing up for those coffee dates. Keep working on myself. Keep hoping that somewhere beneath the hurt and anger, the man who once loved me completely still exists. And maybe, just maybe, he'll find his way back to me, or I'll find my way back to him.